Have you been thinking about starting a podcast? Well, Anchor is the easiest way to start a podcast. Anchor is by Spotify, and you can make your podcast all in one place with the tools that allow you to record, edit, and podcast right from your phone or computer. Distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started now. And by the way, I'm using it right now. You're listening to The Frankie Files, FrankieFilesPodcast.com. Hey everybody, Frankie here, and I'm bringing to you a live Reddit talk conversation from November 18th to commemorate the Jonestown massacre. The cult of Jonestown started in California, and we're going to begin with is from a YouTube channel called HighDef, D-E-F as in definition. It is the audio of the last day for the 900 people plus that died at Jonestown. Trigger warning, it may be difficult for some to hear, but what better to commemorate this day, International Cult Awareness Day, than to hear what happened in the last few hours before they left this planet.
How very much I've loved you. How very much I've tried my best to give you the good life. But in spite of all of that I've tried, a handful of our people with their lives have made our life impossible. There's no way to detach ourselves from what's happened today. Not only we're in a compound situation, not only are there those who have left and committed the betrayal of the century. Some have stolen children from others, and they're in pursuit right now to kill them because they stole their children. And we are sitting here waiting on a powder keg. I don't think this is what we want to do with our babies. I don't think that's what we had in mind to do with our babies. It was said by the greatest of prophets from time immemorial, no man takes my life from me, I lay my life down. So to sit here and wait for the catastrophe that's going to happen on that airplane, it's going to be a catastrophe. Almost happened here. Almost happened. The congressman was nearly killed here. You can't steal people's children. You can't take off with people's children without expecting a violent reaction. And that's not so unfamiliar to us either. Even if we were Judeo-Christian, if we weren't communists, the world, the kingdom suffereth violence, and the violence shall take it by force. If we can't live in peace, then let's die in peace. We've been so betrayed. We have been so terribly betrayed. But we tried, and as Jack Beam often said, I don't know where he's at right this moment. Where's Jack? He said, if this only worked one day, it was worthwhile. Because what's going to happen here in a matter of a few minutes is that one of those people on that plane is going to shoot the pilot. I know that. I didn't plan it, but I know it's going to happen. They're going to shoot that pilot, and down comes that plane into the jungle. And we had better not have any of our children left when it's over, because they'll parachute in here on us. I'm telling you just as plain as I know how to tell you. I've never lied to you. I never have lied to you. I know that's what's going to happen. That's what he intends to do. And he will do it. He'll do it. Fortunately, being so bewildered with many pressures on my brain, seeing all these people behave so treasonous, it was just too much for me to put together. But I now know what he was telling me, and it'll happen. If the plane gets in the air, even. So my opinion is that we be kind to children and be kind to seniors and take the push, and like they used to take in ancient Greece, and step over quietly, because we are not committing suicide. It's a revolutionary act. We can't go back. They won't leave us alone. They're now going back to tell more lies, which means more congressmen, and there's no way we can survive. Anyone that has any dissenting opinion, please speak. Yes. You can have an opportunity, but if our children are left, we are going to have them butchered. We can make a strike, but we'll be striking against people that we don't want to strike against. We'd like to get the people who cause this stuff, and if some people here are prepared to know how to do that, to go in town and get Timothy Stone, but there's no plane. There's no plane. You can't catch a plane in time. He's responsible for it. He brought these people to us. He and Deanna Myrtle. But people in San Francisco will not be idle over this. They'll not take our death in vain, you know. Yes, Christine.
Is it too late for Russia?
Here's why it's too late for Russia. They killed. They started to kill. That's why it makes it too late for Russia. Otherwise, I'd said, Russia, you bet your life. But it's too late. I can't control these people. They're out there. They've gone with their guns, and it's too late. And once we kill anybody, at least that's the way I've always put my lot with you. If one of my people do something, it's me. And they say I don't have to take the blame for this, but I don't live that way. They deliver up Ujara, who tried to get the man back here. Ujara, whose mother has been lying on him and trying to break up this family, and they've all agreed to kill us by any means necessary. You think I'm going to deliver them, Ujara? Not on your life. No. No, you're not going. You're not going. You're not going. I can't live that way. I cannot live that way. I've lived for all, and I'll die for all. I've been living on hope for a long time, Christine, and I appreciate you've always been a very good agitator. I like agitation because you got to see two sides of one issue, two sides of a question. But what those people are going to get done, what they get through, will make our life worse than hell. Will make the Russians not accept us. When they get through lying, they told so many lies between there and that truck that we are done in as far as any other alternative.
Well, I said let's make an airlift to Russia. That's what I say. I don't think nothing is impossible.
Well, how are we going to
believe it?
How are you going to airlift to Russia?
Well, I thought they said if we got in an emergency, they gave you a code to let them know.
No, they did. They gave us the code that they'd let us know of an issue, not us create an issue for them. They said if they saw the country coming down, they'd give us the code. They give us a code. You can check on there and see if it's on the code. You can check with Russia to see if they'll take us in immediately. Otherwise, we die. I don't know what else you say to these people. But to me, death is not a fearful thing. It's living this treachery. I have never seen anything like this before in my life. I've never seen people take the law and do in their own hands and provoke us and try to purposely agitate murder of children Christine, it's not worth living like this. Not worth living like this.
I think that there were too few who left for 1,200 people to give them their lives for those people that left.
You know how many left?
20 odd. That's a small
20 odd. 20 odd.
Compared to what's here.
20 odd. But what's going to happen when they don't leave? I hope that they could leave, but what's going to happen when they don't leave?
You mean the people here?
Yeah, what's going to happen to us when they don't leave, when they get on the plane and the plane goes down?
I don't think it'll go down.
You don't think it'll go down? I wish I could tell you were right, but I'm right. There's one man there who blames, and rightfully so, Debbie Blakey for the murder of his mother. And he'll stop that pilot by any means necessary. He'll do it. Things out of pilot.
I wasn't speaking about that plane. I was speaking about the plane for us to go to Russia.
To Russia. You think Russia's going to want? No, not going to. We're not. You think Russia's going to want us with all this stigma? We had some value, but now we don't have any value.
Well, I don't see it like that. I mean, I feel like that as long as there's life, there's hope. That's my faith.
Well, everybody dies. Someplace that hope runs out because everybody dies. I haven't seen anybody yet that didn't die.
No.
I like to choose my own kind of death for a change. I'm tired of being tormented to hell. That's what I'm tired of. Tired of it. 1,200 people's lives in my hands, and I certainly don't want your life in my hand. But I'm going to tell you, Christine, without me, life has no meaning. I'm the best friend you'll ever have. Once I have to pay, I'm standing with you, Jara. I'm standing with those people. They're part of me. I can detach myself. My attorney says detach myself. No. I never detached myself from any of your troubles. I've always taken your troubles right on my shoulders. And I'm not going to change that now. It's too late. I've been running too long. I'm not going to change now. Maybe the next time you get to go to Russia, the next time around. What I'm talking about now is in the dispensation of judgment. This is a revolutionary suicide council. I'm not talking about self-destruction. I'm talking about what we have no other road. I will take your call. We will put it to the Russians, and I can tell you the answer now because I'm a prophet. Call the Russians and tell them to see if they'll take us.
I said I'm afraid to die.
I don't think you are. I don't think you are.
But I look at our babies and I think they deserve to live.
I agree.
You know?
But also they deserve, what's more, they deserve peace.
We all came here for peace.
And have we had it?
No.
I tried to give it to you. I've laid down my life practically. I've practically died every day to give you peace. And you've still not had any peace. You look better than I've seen you in a long while, but it's still not the kind of peace that I wanted to give you. So, the person, the fool, continues to say that you're a winner when you lose. Win one, lose two. What? I didn't hear you, ma'am. You have to speak up. That's a sweet thought. Who said that?
Check the text comments for the link to what I'm playing for you guys.
Come on up and speak it again, honey. Come up and say it talk about it. It's taken off. No plane is taken off. It's suicide. They have done it. Stone has done it. Somebody, can they talk? Can they not talk to San Francisco? See, the Stone does not get by with this infamy. This is infamy. He has done the thing he wanted to do. To have us destroyed.
When we destroy ourselves, we're defeated. We let them, the enemy, defeat us.
Did you see I live to fight no more forever?
Yes, I saw that.
Did you not have some sense of pride and victory in that man? He would not subject himself to the will and whim of people who tell that they're going to come in whenever they please and push into our house, come when they please, take who they want to, talk to who they want to. Is that living? That's not living to me. That's not freedom. That's not the kind of freedom I sought.
But I think where they made their mistake is when they stopped to rest. If they had gone on, they would have made it. But they stopped to rest.
It's over, sister. It's over. We made that day. We made a beautiful day. And let's make it a beautiful day. That's what
We win when we go down. Tim Stone has nobody else to hate. He has nobody else to hate. Then he'll destroy himself. I'm speaking here not as the administrator, speaking as a prophet today. I wouldn't step in this seat and talk so serious if I didn't know what I was talking about. If there's any way to call back the immense amount of damage that's going to be done. But I cannot separate myself from the pain of my people. You can't either, Christine, if you stop to think about it. You can't separate yourself. We've walked too long together.
I know that, but I still think as an individual, I have a right to...
You do, and I'm listening.
What I think, what I feel, and I think we all have a right to our own destiny as individuals.
Right.
And I think I have a right to choose mine, and everybody else has a right to choose theirs. Mm-hmm. You know?
I'm not criticizing. I'm not sure. What's that? That's today. That's what 20 people said today with their lives.
I think I still have a right to my own opinion.
I'm not taking it from you. I'm not taking it from you.
Christine, you're only standing here because he was here in the first place. So I don't know what you're talking about, having an individual life. Your life has been extended to the day that you're standing there because of him.
Voice back there, she has as much right to speak to anybody else, too. What'd you say, Ruby? Well, you'll regret it this very day if you don't die. You'll regret it if you don't die. You'll regret it.
Too many people.
I saved them, but I made my example. I made my expression. I made my manifestation, and the world was ready, not ready for me. Paul said, I was a man born out of due season. I've been born out of due season just like all we are, and the best testimony we can make is to leave this goddamn world. Jeez.
I'm not talking to her. Will you let me talk?
You're talking.
Would you make her sit down and let me talk while I'm on the floor, or let her talk?
Property to tell the leader what to do. It really is. I've listened to you. You asked me about Russia. I'm right now making a call to Russia. What more do you suggest? I'm listening to you. If Russia gives me one slight bit of encouragement, I just now instructed them to go there and do that.
You would be no fucking good at Russia, goddammit!
All right, now everybody hold it. We didn't come. Hold it.
Much longer to maintain. To lay down your burdens. I'm going to lay down my burdens down by the riverside. So we lay them down here in the side of Guyana. What's the difference? No man didn't take our life right now. He hadn't taken it. But when they start parachuting out of the air, they'll shoot some of our innocent babies. I don't want to see this, Christine. Because they got to shoot me to get through to some of these people. I'm not letting them take your jar. Can you let them take your jar?
John died?
What's that?
You mean you want to see John, the little one with Keith?
I want to see. Peace.
Are you saying that you think he thinks more of them than other children here?
John.
What you're saying?
But you're acting. Do you think I'd put John's life above others? If I put John's life above others, I wouldn't be standing with the jar. I send John out. He could go out on the driveway tonight.
Because he's young. They're young.
I know, but he's no different to me than any of these children here. He's just one of my children. I don't prefer one above another. I don't prefer him above you, Jara. I can't do that. I can't separate myself from your actions or his actions. If you'd done something wrong, I'd stand with you. If they wanted to come and get you, they'd have to take me.
We're all ready to go. If you tell us we have to give our lives now, we're ready. I'm pretty sure all the rest of sisters and brothers are with me.
For months I've tried to keep this thing from happening, but I now see it's the will of sovereign being that this happened to us. That we lay down our lives in protest against what's being done. That we lay down our lives to protest in what's being done. The criminality of people.
Check the text notes for what you're listening to.
Did you notice who walked out? Mostly white people. Mostly white people walked. I'm so grateful for the ones that didn't, those who knew who they are. But there's no point. There's no point to this. We are born before our time. They won't accept us. And I don't think we should sit here and take any more time for our children to be.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
Oh, there I am. I just
Hey,
had to unmute.
We're listening to this crazy tape of the last day of Jonestown.
Well, that was so creepy.
Is it? And it's not over, but of course I'd prefer a live person such as yourself. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. You know, it's so funny because I was younger when that all happened, but then they flew the bodies into the naval station in Puerto Rico.
But were you stationed there when that happened?
No, but I was stationed there afterwards, and I hate to be hooky spooky about it, but it was the airfield, and I worked on airplanes, and you could never walk on the airfield without a creepy feeling, knowing that those bodies were there.
Wow, what an odd memory. Okay, so 78, yeah. And I'm going to get into this other Rolling Stone article in a little while. I'd say there's, well, I might abbreviate this video, but it's on YouTube and it's really crazy. It's called Death Tape 1978. It's on the HighDef YouTube channel. All they do is remaster tapes, cassette tapes. And they put them online with the audio. And so this one's pretty amazing because it's like, don't take anyone's word for it. Let's listen in to the last days and his cavalier excuses for, trying to take these 900 people with him. So here we go back to that, if you're ready for more.
Endangered because they come after our children and we give them our children, then our children will suffer forever. I have no quarrel with you coming up. I like you. I personally like you very much.
People get hostile when you try to.
Oh well, some people do, but just some people do. Put it that way. I'm not hostile. You had to be honest, and you stayed. And if you wanted to run, you'd run with them because anybody could have run today. They would have wanted to. I know you're not a runner, and your life is precious to me. It's as precious as John's. And I don't, what I do with weight and justice and judgment. I've weighted against all evidence.
That's all I got to say.
What comes now, folks? What comes now?
Everybody hold it.
Say peace. Say peace. Say peace. Say peace. Say peace. What's come? Don't let this. Just take Dwyer on down to the East House.
Everybody be quiet, please.
So you've got some respect for our lives.
That means sit down, sit down, sit down.
I know. I tried so very, very hard. I'm trying over here to see what can be. what can happen in Los Angeles. Who is it? Get Dwyer out of here.
Hello.
Hey, okay, what you got?
To him. Dwyer? I'm not talking about you, Jara. I said Dwyer.
Fast forwarding a little.
Jara. I'm not letting him take you, Jara.
Okay, here's the last 10 minutes.
It's never been done before, you say. It's been done by every tribe in history. Every tribe facing annihilation. All the Indians of the Amazon are doing it right now. They refuse to bring any babies into the world. They kill every child that comes into the world because they don't want to live in this kind of a world. So be patient, be patient. Death is, I tell you, I don't care how many screams you hear, I don't care how many anguished cries. Death is a million times preferable to 10 more days of this life. If you knew what was ahead of you, you'd be glad to be stepping over tonight. Death is common to people. And the Eskimos, they take death in their stride. Let's be dignified. If you quit telling them they're dying, if you adults would stop some of this nonsense, adults, I call on you to stop this nonsense. I call on you to quit exciting your children when all they're doing is going to quiet rest. I call on you to stop this now. If you have any respect at all, are we black, proud, and socialist, or what are we? Now stop this nonsense. Don't carry this on anymore. You're exciting your children. All over, and it's good. No sorrow that it's all over. I'm glad it's over. Hurry, my children, hurry. All right, they does not fall into the hands of the enemy. Hurry, my children. Hurry. There's seniors out here that I'm concerned about. Hurry. I don't want to leave my seniors to this mess. Quickly.
What's the rush?
Good knowing you. No more pain, Al. No more pain, I said, Al. No more pain. Jim Cobb is laying on the airfield dead at this moment. Remember, the Oliver woman said she'd come over and kill me if her sons wouldn't stop her. These are people, the peddlers of hate. All we're doing is laying down our life. We're not letting them take our life. We're laying down our life. We're seeking their lives. We just want peace.
All I'd like to say is that my so-called parents was filled with so much hate and treachery. I think you people out here should think about how your relatives was and be glad about that the children are being laid to rest. And all I like to say is I thank Dad for making me strong to stand with it all and make me ready for it. Thank you.
All they're doing is taking a drink to go to sleep. That's what death is, sleep.
Well,
but I'm tired of it all.
Loving thing he could have ever done, the most loving thing all of us could have done. And it's been a pleasure walking with all of you in this revolutionary struggle. No other way I would rather go than give my life for socialism, communism. And I thank Dad very, very much.
That Dad's love and mercy and goodness and kindness and bringing us to this land of freedom. His love, his mother was the advance guard to socialism. And his love and his mercy should go on forever, on to the fields of
Where's the vat? Where's the vat with the green C?
Go on forever to the pine. And thank you, Dad.
The vat with the green C in, please. Bring it here so the adults can begin. Beg you, don't fail to follow my advice. You'll be sorry. You'll be sorry. That we do it and that they do it. Must trust you. You have to step across. We laid it down. We got tired. We didn't commit suicide. We committed an act of revolutionary suicide protesting the conditions of an inhumane world.
And that is the crazy that they left off with. Somewhere around there. Susan, what do you think?
Yeah, gosh, it is amazing that many people would put their lives, their end of their lives, in the hands of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think some people were like, they wanted to get the heck out of there and they just killed him anyway. So it was suicide, but also murder. Some of those people got murdered.
They did, because when the congressperson was killed in the parking lot, anyone who, what do you call it, defected was
Right.
shot.
Yeah.
Not much choice there.
Yeah.
It's insane. So this this audio we listened to, you guys, is on the chat in the text, which will remain on this, and it's a HighDef station on YouTube, and it's about an hour, I think, or longer, that particular remastered tape. Shocking stuff. And also, like, someone who's never been in a cult doesn't understand the seduction that led up to that point, the absolutism, the promises, so there's also, they're in a strange country. They no longer have their bearings. And imagine, like, just the shock. Like, they didn't come there for that, but you can hear it in his voice. He's convincing them to do it.
Well, I think it's every cult member's fear. I mean, when you leave a cult and you have friends and family that are left inside, it's every, it's every survivor's fear that, will it come to that, the closer that person gets to being, caught, or, held accountable by the authorities, is that going to happen? I mean, I think that was my fear. The more Keith Raniere amped up his behavior, is like, is that going to happen? Is he going to try to, create some kind of mass suicide, scenario, or is he going to kill people?
Yeah, because they don't have an exit plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
They usually don't have an exit plan. So in this Rolling Stone article, Jonestown, 13 Things You Should Know About the Cult Massacre. And they do call it a cult massacre instead of a suicide, which, it was the largest. Okay, so check this out. Until September 11th attacks, the tragedy in Jonestown on November 1878 represents the largest number of American civilian casualties in a single non-natural event. It's unfathomable now, as it was then, that more than 900 Americans, members of a San Francisco-based religious cult group, they say, called the People's Temple, died after drinking poison at the urging of their leader, Reverend Jim Jones, in a secluded South American jungle settlement. Photographs taken after the carnage forever document the sheer enormity of the event. The bodies of hundreds of people, including children, lying face down in the grass nearly 40 years later, the infamous and horrific event continues to fascinate us through numerous books, articles, and documentaries. And they have this quick clip I'm going to play for you guys. It starts out with until the September 11th attacks, Jonestown Massacre represented the largest.
Tremendous wind, seemed to come out of nowhere. And there was a torrent.
Tim Reiterman, journalist.
Torrent of rain, and the moment was very, very ominous. And in the coming minutes, members of People's Temple gathered around the pavilion, kind of surrounded us and where we were, and all eyes were on Jones looking for visible cues, some sort of leadership or guidance about what was going to happen next. I think he knew what was going to happen next.
He had, in my opinion, and I
Yolanda Williams.
He had 917 chances to stop the annihilation, and yet he continued to witness people dying one by one. Jim Jones had the ability to be able to reach people on whatever level and to address the needs and concerns of individuals at any given point in time.
I've spent years trying to understand why and how it happened. And many people embrace myths about Jonestown. One of those myths was that it was mass suicide, that people willingly stepped forward, whereas in fact they were manipulated by Jones at the end. The shooting of Congressman Ryan was used to convince Jones's followers that they had no out, no place to go, that someone was going to come in and after them. And then he said, let's take the potion.
To continue, the story of Jonestown begins with Jones, a white minister who preached unconventional socialist and progressive ideas to a predominantly African-American congregation called the People's Temple. At the height of its popularity during the 70s, the temple had a membership estimated in the thousands and was courted by local politicians in San Francisco, including Harvey Milk. But by 77, Jones had grown paranoid from the media scrutiny over the temple's suspicious activities, and he and his numerous followers moved to an agricultural settlement, Jonestown. They named it Jonestown, in Guyana, the remote country of Venezuela. And this is where the escalation takes place, and it's described here. Concern over the welfare of those in the jungle encampment prompted U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan to visit Jonestown in November of 78. After checking out the settlement, Ryan was shot to death along with 4 other people by temple gunmen at an airstrip. That's as they tried to leave, guys. Following those murders, Jones commanded his followers to drink cyanide-laced punch, starting with the children first. In all, there were over 900 who died in Jonestown, including Jim Jones, who was found dead of a gunshot wound to the head. There's speculation that he may have taken his own life or that his nurse, Annie Moore, fatally shot him before she killed herself in the same manner. Survivors still remember being a part of the church that they devoted a good portion of their lives to. The people were incredible, says Jean Clancy, who worked at the Temple newspaper, capable of committing themselves to something outside of their own self-interests. Yeah, clearly. Yeah, so 2 links so far in the chat. The first one is to the YouTube audio, and the second one is to this Rolling Stone article. And, being in my 50s, I was in a cult when this happened. And the leader was so freaking nuts and audacious that after this happened, she put Kool-Aid cups on little Dixie cups on a tray, and during a class said, "Let's see who trusts us," and had everyone drink them. And my mom was one of those people. That's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
They usually don't have an exit plan. So in this Rolling Stone article, Jonestown, 13 things you should know about the cult massacre. And they do call it a cult massacre instead of a suicide, which, it was the largest. Okay, so check this out. Until September 11th attacks, the tragedy in Jonestown on November 1878 represents the largest number of American civilian casualties in a single non-natural event. It's unfathomable now, as it was then, that more than 900 Americans, members of a San Francisco-based religious cult group, they say, called the People's Temple, died after drinking poison at the urging of their leader, Reverend Jim Jones, in a secluded South American jungle settlement. Photographs taken after the carnage forever document the sheer enormity of the event. The bodies of hundreds of people, including children, lying face down in the grass nearly 40 years later. The infamous and horrific event continues to fascinate us through numerous books, articles, and documentaries. And they have this quick clip I'm going to play for you guys. It starts out with until the September 11th attacks, Jonestown Massacre represented the largest.
Tremendous wind, seemed to come out of nowhere. And there was a torrent.
Tim Reiterman, journalist.
Torrent of rain, and the moment was very, very ominous. And in the coming minutes, members of People's Temple gathered around the pavilion and surrounded us and where we were, and all eyes were on Jones, looking for visible cues, some sort of leadership or guidance about what was going to happen next. I think he knew what was going to happen next.
He had, in my opinion, and I
Yolanda Williams,
he had 917 chances to stop the annihilation, and yet he continued to witness people dying one by one. Jim Jones had the ability to be able to reach people on whatever level and to address the needs and concerns of individuals at any given point in time.
I've spent years trying to understand why and how it happened. And many people embrace myths about Jonestown. One of those myths was that it was mass suicide, that people willingly stepped forward, whereas in fact they were manipulated by Jones at the end. The shooting of Congressman Ryan was used to convince Jones's followers that they had no out, no place to go, that someone was going to come in and after them. And then he said, let's take the potion.
To continue, the story of Jonestown begins with Jones, a white minister who preached unconventional socialist and progressive ideas to a predominantly African American congregation called the People's Temple. At the height of its popularity during the 70s, the temple had a membership estimated in the thousands and was courted by local politicians in San Francisco, including Harvey Milk. But by 77, Jones had grown paranoid from the media scrutiny over the temple's suspicious activities, and he and his numerous followers moved to an agricultural settlement, Jonestown. They named it Jonestown, in Guyana, the remote country of Venezuela. And this is where the escalation takes place, and it's described here. Concern over the welfare of those in the jungle encampment prompted U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan to visit Jonestown in November of 78. After checking out the settlement, Ryan was shot to death along with 4 other people by temple gunmen at an airstrip. That's as they tried to leave, guys. Following those murders, Jones commanded his followers to drink cyanide-laced punch, starting with the children first. In all, there were over 900 who died in Jonestown, including Jim Jones, who was found dead of a gunshot wound to the head. There's speculation that he may have taken his own life, or that his nurse, Annie Moore, fatally shot him before she killed herself in the same manner. Survivors still remember being a part of the church that they devoted a good portion of their lives to. The people were incredible, says Jean Clancy, who worked at the Temple newspaper, capable of committing themselves to something outside of their own self-interests. Yeah, clearly. Yeah, so 2 links so far in the chat. The first one is to the YouTube audio, and the second one is to this Rolling Stone article. And, you know, being in my 50s, I was in a cult when this happened. And the leader was so freaking nuts and audacious that after this happened, she put Kool-Aid cups on little Dixie cups on a tray, and during a class said, "Let's see who trusts us," and had everyone drink them. And my mom was one of those people. Ah, that's what they did. How about that, Susan?
That's crazy.
She told me that recently, and I was like, oh, Lord, I'm glad you snapped out of that. You know, she did that. She was showing the trust. So, yeah, the 70s, where were you? Where would you have been?
I was in the Navy.
Oh, right.
In the late 70s. I went
Right.
in 76. So
You were
when
just saying.
when the massacre happened, I was stationed in Jacksonville, Florida, and then in 79 is when I went down. I got stationed in Puerto Rico.
Okay. And you were adjacent to some of those bodies.
Yeah, well, yeah, they had flown them in to Puerto Rico, but they had already flown out. But it was just so creepy because I knew they had flown into that airbase. It was just like so creepy.
It is, because what's weird about it is like it's on Guyana property, Venezuela, but these people were all rooted in California, all of their family, everything. And so I guess that makes sense. Like, was that a request
No,
to,
no,
how did that work?
well, they had
Murder?
they had to refuel the planes,
Oh, yeah. Stopover.
So it was just a stopover to refuel the planes,
Okay.
kind of thing.
Wow. Okay. So a little bit more on the death of those people. There is I'll put this link in chat too. Jonestown.s as in Sam, D dog, S Sam, U .edu, stsu.edu. So jonestown.stsu.edu, the Jonestown Memorial List. Completed almost 30 years after the deaths in Guyana, the following is the first to include the names of everyone who died in Guyana on the 18th, 1978. There's
a documentary. One of his sons is alive, because during the massacre, his son, who was in Guyana, was in another town getting supplies, I think.
Oh my God.
And
luckiest day ever.
Lucky
you made a great choice. I'll go on that, Aaron. That's insane. I didn't know that. Let me Google it.
Yeah, and I remember watching. I don't remember it was like a 60 Minutes thing, or I think it was longer than that. But maybe it might have been on 60 Minutes, and I just happened to stumble on it one day, and I thought, "Oh my God, what a what a lucky day." But it was interesting to watch because he was talking about his whole experience, being there with his dad, and then he was gone during the whole thing. But what I think it was the congressman that went down there, because some of the family members of the cult members that had went down there were hammering about, what's going on with our family. We can't get a hold of them, and we're worried about them.
And there was complaints that it was like a labor camp.
Yeah.
They were building their own, city. I can't imagine the conditions were too good. It reminds me of the Rajneesh camps. It's like, you're
at least the Rajneesh, it was in America, to where they had better access to things.
It's funny they were that in the middle say that, because that was one of Dr. Lalish's great detailed sections of Bounded Choice, which I am like I've written through all of the margins in red. She, like, there's enough space for me to put all the things I wanted to note. It's that dense. She goes through the introduction, New Age, and when we're talking about Rajneesh, it was through a loosening of immigration that these gurus completely infiltrated America, where they wanted to have these large properties and do their thing and be left alone. And they did it. And so he was already doing an encampment in India where people lived, ashram. And so he just wanted to do the same thing here. So I know, I mean, it is weird when you say at least they're in America, but it's like, okay, they had toilets. They had toilets for sure. They had amenities.
Some amenities, but in Guyana they were out in the middle of like a hot, stinking, muggy jungle.
Oh God, I can't even imagine. Oh, here's the story. Oh, Susan, what a gem! How Jim Jones' son survived the Jonestown tragedy, and this is in Bustle.com. Listed under entertainment. Fascinating. Okay, I wouldn't agree. I would say it's more documentary news, but all right.
Right, yeah.
Caitlin Gallagher, February 26, 2018. Okay, well, here's the story. While religious leader Jim Jones has historically been blamed for the tragedy that occurred at the Guyana compound, the A&E Special Jonestown, that must be the one you're talking about. Jonestown, the women behind the massacre, argues that the women, maybe, closest to Jones were, commentary by me, also partially responsible. One of the female subjects of the documentary is Marceline Jones, who was his wife, Jim Jones' wife. Marceline and Jim had one biological child together. I can't even imagine how messed up that kid is. And Stephen Jones appears in Jonestown, the woman behind the massacre. Despite his unconventional upbringing and the horrific tragedy brought about by his father's religious group, the People's Temple, Stephen speaks candidly about his experience in the documentary. And based on what Stephen Jones is doing now, it seems he's tried to live as normal a life as anyone who's gone through what he could possibly do. When more than 900 people were killed, blah, blah, blah. Stephen was not at the settlement. Here's the clincher right here that you were talking about. Founded by his father. Instead, the Washington Post reported that Stephen escaped death with the Jonestown basketball team.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so they were playing in a tournament in Guyana, Georgetown, 150 miles from Jonestown, and were still in Guyana's capital when the murder-suicide occurred. I wonder how many other kids were there with him. Afterwards, the 19-year-old Stephen was put in jail for 3 months in South American nation before the case against him was thrown out. So guilt by association.
Right, yeah.
I think I'd probably be pretty messed up if I hadn't lost everybody I had and hadn't got through the prison experience. Stephen told Washington Post, I mellowed out. Oh my gosh, okay. How did he do that? Throughout the 40 years since the deaths at Jonestown, Stephen has been willing to give media interviews. I bet he's busy today. As outlined in the above video, he was featured in the History Channel's 07 documentary Jonestown Paradise Lost. Okay, there's another one. And is written for the website Alternative Considerations of Jonestown and People's Temple, which is run by San Diego State University. Aha, that's part of where this is coming from. Many of his previous interviews echo what he discusses in Jonestown, but he has an intimate perspective to give when it comes to his father and mother, who both died during the event. It's funny, they didn't check on him. I know there was no cell phone, so they couldn't text him. Dying, see you in the next life. So weird. He struggled with drug addiction after Jonestown, but he's sober now. He said, I'm blessed to have hit enough of a bottom to have been surrounded by amazing, wonderful, honest, compassionate, challenging people to see me through that. Yikes. Stephen has 3 daughters, and there's a photo of Stephen or Stephen, presumably with one of his daughters, on the Alternative Considerations website. He is not known if he's relates to his surviving siblings. Okay, so there's other ones, maybe half sisters, but the one's leadership at the time of death, their only son is this guy.
Well, what we respond to is what we respond to. Like, have you had a positive, how has your life been being a human being, no matter where you're at? Like, oh, well, this has been quite fantastic. And you could live in Bangladesh, or you could live in Nepal, or you could live also, and like, oh yeah, your life could be really good.
Yeah.
But it could also be really horrible, and it could be like, well, yeah, I could live in, and even in like, oh yeah, of course, Americans are always, they're like the old Romans and Britons and Greeks. They're like, oh yeah, there can't be anything better than being an American. What could be better than being an American? Well, quite frankly, there's a lot of things that are like great than being American.
Human just won first.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I wanted to jump in here. I checked on the dates because I was mentioning Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate was in March of '97. And then, so this would have been historically first. So today is the commemorative day, FYI, when 900 people were killed in Jonestown massacre. So by the way, here's some more about Jim Jones. He was born in 1931 and he died in 1978. So that really, to me, is like an important part in American history when ideology was in flux. I mean, it is now too, but it was like communism was, he was self-described communist / socialist. And that was the basis of the church. And I think it really did mingle together for him with the Christian doctrine that he preached. But the temple was actually founded in the 50s in California. In the 60s, temple in Indiana. That's the Oregon, the roots. And then they moved to California in the 60s. And then
that's crazy.
Right, because he was getting negative attention. And in this article, history.com, following the media attention, the powerful controlling preacher moved in the 70s 1,000 of the followers to the Guyanese jungle. Why would you have to do that? First of all, when it didn't go well is when they died. And that's how cults are. It's like, wait, I just got ran through a gauntlet and I didn't even know. Right. Where am I? I'm a little mouse. People's Temple ran social and medical programs for the needy, including a free dining hall, drug rehab, and legal services. Reminds you of Synanon, right? And Jones' message of social equality and racial justice, like you say, attracted a diverse group of followers, including idealistic young people who wanted to do something meaningful with their lives, with a megalomaniac leader. So it was the only South American country with English as the official language. In 1977, Jones and more than 1,000 people moved to Guyana. They had started it in 1974. But it had turned out not to be the paradise the leader promised. Temple members worked long days in the field and were subjected to harsh punishments if they questioned Jones' authority. Oh, yeah, well, hello, cult behavior. Their passports, here's the caveat where it becomes kidnapping. Their passports and medications were confiscated and they were plagued by mosquitoes and tropical diseases. Now, that's no joke. I'm guessing malaria, etc. Armed guards patrolled the jungle compound, another turn that took it from a church into a militia, right? Members were encouraged to inform on one another and were forced to attend lengthy late-night meetings. Their letters and phone calls were censored. Jones was declining in mental health and addicted to drugs. You can hear it in that recording I opened with, like, he sounds so sedated. He compared himself to Vladimir Lenin and Jesus Christ. Of course he did. I'm ready for you, Susan.
Yeah, I'm here. Whenever you're using coercive control, that's where it switches over from things like a regular religion into cult.
Yeah.
You know, a regular church isn't surrounded by armed guards.
No.
They don't take passports away. You
No.
know, it reminds me of the last episode of The Vow where they put Danny in a room for two
Yes.
years. You know, they took away all of her papers, and people are saying, you know, well, she could have left any time. Well, how does a young adult leave the U.S. a room in the U.S. at any time and try to have she had no resources.
That was shocking.
You know, you know, her parents were against her because they had been turned by, you know, Keith Raniere, the cult leader. Like, where's she supposed to go? She had no money. She didn't have her papers. She didn't have her birth certificate. She didn't have her passport.
And the
Jonestown, I mean, it obviously was a very dangerous cult because of what Jim Jones had done to had locked people in.
Extremely dangerous. It says he was convinced that the government, the media, and others were out to destroy him. He also required, here we go on this. This is crazy. People's Temple members to participate in mock suicide drills in the middle of the night. That's a little asterisk there I didn't know about.
That's very scary.
Suicide drills? And you heard in the intro here, if you didn't hear it, you can hear it on the replay. The People's Temple's last day was recorded on audio, and I played it. And, you know, in it, he's droning on and on about life after death. This is just a body that will see each other again. I mean, just filling them with nonsense. But here's a little note. We were talking about what, as far as the ambush, Leo Ryan, the U.S. rep from California, the Congress rep, heard from some of his constituents that their family members were people being held against their own will, like we just talked about. How were they held? Well, their papers were taken away, and by gunpoint while they worked. Okay, so they decided to go there to investigate. Ryan, the congressman, arrived in Guyana in November, and a delegation that included news reporters and photographers and concerned relatives toured the People's Temple. The congressmen and reporters were welcomed, to their surprise, with a dinner and evening entertainment. Jones even agreed to meet with reporters. It was going good, it sounds like, at first. During the visit, though, some People's Temple's members asked Ryan's group to help them get out of Jonestown. That was what started it. So the group, which included a small contingent of People's Temple defectors, left Jonestown. That's what set him off. While waiting at a nearby jungle airstrip, they were ambushed by gunmen sent by Jim Jones. Ryan was killed along with a reporter and a cameraman from NBC and a photographer from the San Francisco Examiner. The same day as the murders at the airstrip, Jones told his followers that the soldiers would come for them and torture them. What a lie. Just a lie. He ordered everyone to gather in the main pavilion and commit what he termed a revolutionary act. The youngest members of the People's Temple were the first to die. As parents and nurses used syringes to drop potent mix of cyanide, sedative, and powdered fruit juice into children's throats, Jones had reportedly obtained a jeweler's license at some earlier point, which enabled him to stockpile cyanide. Oh my gosh.
Well, it points to premeditative murder because of the fact that they had done the drills.
Yes. What the heck would you need to do a suicide drill for? So he was filling them with paranoia that if they got caught, it would be worse than if they killed themselves. Gosh, it sounds like you're in an unsafe place. You know? A death toll at Jonestown was 909 people, a third of them children. A few people managed to escape into the jungle that day. Well, that's what it took to escape, going into a jungle. Oh, my Lord.
Right.
Oh, my Lord. Well, at least several dozen more People's Temple members, including several of Jones' sons, were in another part of Guyana at the time. In total, only 33 survived.
Right.
Whew. When people say mind control is not real, I say, okay, well, how did you get to your coffee machine this morning? How did you get there? Did your brain tell you to go do it?
Oh,
Yes.
additional's back. Sorry.
Messages to do stuff come from our brain. So coercion and mind control is the ultimate weapon. The military knows this. The military knows this.
Military, like when I went through boot camp, you know, a lot of times people think that boot camp is to break you down and rebuild you, but I would just like to clear that mysticism up.
Okay.
The one thing, it's to help you pay attention to detail, you know, because they make you do a lot of weird things, like when your shoes are on, your laces are in your shoes one way, but when you store them in your locker, your laces are the other way. And it's to teach you to pay attention to detail, because like if you're working on a multi-million-dollar aircraft, putting the blue wires one way is, you have to do that so that yeah, it's deadly,
Yeah.
you know, the kind of thing. And so, or if you're on the battlefield and your senior person tells you to hit the deck, you don't stand there and go like, well, why should I, as you're taking a bullet to the chest, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, you know.
Yes.
So you know, there's a lot of stuff out there that you know, oh, they're just trying to break you down. Well, no, they're not. They're trying to teach you attention to detail in a quick fashion. And so there's a lot of Hollywood kind of bullshit out there about, you know,
G.I. Jane
this
and
is why
stuff.
they're doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And but you have free will. I mean, yeah, you sign a contract, but you sign a contract with a lot of jobs, but there is a way out, you know, at the end of your contract, you can leave. In a cult, if you leave, you can leave quietly, but then they make up a lot of shit about why you left, and they banish your name within the cult, so nobody comes to you to ask why you leave. But if you leave like I did, then they sue your ass and they harass you, you know, until the end of time, unless the cult gets burned down.
And Susan, I never allowed myself to believe that they would ever take any direct action for many years, even though I saw, not firsthand, but I saw people's life go to shit after they left. And I was like, well, you know, I only left because, or whatever. No, I think it's always, especially in the high demand groups and the ones with sex cults and the ones who are doing illegal activity, they don't want witnesses to go talking to people. And we might not even know what we were witness to. There's another factor there. I often think about, you know, I was witness to things I don't even know what happened there. So they could be stalking me and I don't even know it, just to make sure I don't say something that I don't even know I know.
Right.
Because that's what criminals do. They got to protect themselves. Hey,
Right.
Another interesting point on this. I'm reading the FBI article on FBI.gov, History, Famous Cases, Jonestown. In the end, along with helping to unravel the chain of events and bring closure to grieving families, the FBI was able to make a case against Larry Layton. Layton, the only member of the People's Temple tried in the U.S. for criminal acts of Jonestown, was extradited, convicted, and sentenced to life in prison. Wow, so he's like the only guy that was tried for anything. Everybody else got away with just killing themselves.
They got away with killing themselves.
You know what I mean? It's like, they didn't stick around for the consequences.
It's kind of hard to try somebody who's off themselves.
That's why people do death by cop. They do the shooting and then they hope that, you know, they get taken out, right? In all these school shootings.
Right.
It's one of the things, like the other guy who left was saying. You think, okay, well, after that, certainly nothing else like this would happen because we can see the signs, right? We can see it coming, right? Huh. And
It's kind of hard to stop a group from doing something like a Jonestown.
well, what could have been done? It would have to be done while they were still in the States or by local Guyana authorities. Or maybe the families could have looked into what the heck was going on.
Well, I think the families tried to.
Well, yeah, actually, that's what the whole trip was about. They went to their congressperson.
Yeah, but the thing is that once somebody joins a cult, because of the way the laws are now, you can't really pull them out. I mean, in the 70s, they were kidnapping cult members in vans and deprogramming them, and then they passed laws where you couldn't do that.
I have a comment on that because I recently talked to Joseph Simhart, and I had not ever spoken to him or I didn't know of his work. So he's one of the way back ones that was a cult exit deprogrammer. And he was involved in that until they decided it was illegal to kidnap / take them clandestinely, by their parents' desire. And the parents would pay. I think you know all about this, but for those listening who don't, parents would pay an extreme amount of money, 10,000 and up, to get their child kidnapped from a cult and deprogrammed until they came to their senses. They would sit them in a room and have conversations. And so Joseph Simharp is one of the originals that did that. How about that? It was pretty interesting to talk to him. I recommend.
Right. So when somebody decides to join a cult, there's really nothing a family can, hardly anything a family can do. I mean, look at what Catherine Oxenberg did in regards to trying to save her daughter. And really what it took was India was a day away from getting arrested as a co-conspirator. And the FBI called Catherine and said, look, we're going to arrest your daughter tomorrow unless there's something you can do. And Catherine called India and said, you're going to be arrested tomorrow, if you don't do something.
Wow.
And that scared India enough that she went to the FBI and said, what can I do? And so India worked a deal with the FBI to work with them. Wow. And instead of, and luckily Allison had left all the tapes of her and Keith Raniere talking with each other about how to set up DOS. And India took those tapes to the FBI, and then Allison validated those. And that's why Allison got a reduced sentence. And because India turned those over, India was able to work a deal to not get prosecuted.
Wow. Thank goodness, actually, that they had those things to bring to the table.
Yeah, because that's what was verified. Well, that's what verified Keith knew everything and set everything up about DOS.
Yeah. So incredible. Oh, and I have more comments on that, but Cold Vault Casey made a comment that the suicide drills were called White Nights. The suicide drills that the crazy Jonestown leader, Jim Jones, was doing. White Nights. Excuse me, that's a weird play on words. I would like to hear more about that. Because he was playing on white, saying white people mainly left during the scuffle, and it was all the black people that stayed with him. And he was basically, it wasn't only black, but he goes, look, they were mostly white who betrayed us. It was really, while he said race didn't matter, he then played with race often in these dialogues. It's like, wait, which is it? You going to use it against us as a tool, or is it? He's very hypocritical. Also, very unstable, right? Very, very unstable. And by the way, you had given us a preview in your talk when you did the Reddit talk story that I didn't know about Danny. And now I just, after watching season 4 or 5, or both actually, the full story, or at least most of the story, was revealed. And Danny, what she experienced, it really is shocking because, and Colt Vault had messaged me a trigger warning, and she was right. Like, it was so difficult. I watched it with my mom,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so hard to answer what coercion is, Susan. I was on chains just like that. And I remember the day I walked out, it feels so weird. You're just like, wait a minute. There is nothing stopping me. It encourages you, finally, after all that intimidation and fear that they use to keep you there. It's just like, wait a minute. I'm going to walk out. Yeah, I don't have anything, but I'm going to walk out. And
Well,
then you just walk out like she
well,
did.
Danny did walk out of the house and walked outside, but then she went back to the room,
Mhm.
and they didn't make that clear in the episode, because Danny had nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
understood.
but eventually Lauren arranged to have Danny taken to the Mexico border
Okay.
and dropped off, but they still didn't give her
Spoiler.
anything. They
Yeah.
didn't give her anything.
Wow.
And so Danny
So
had,
cruel.
I know, they were so cruel.
I mean,
It's
you know what? You can't excuse when you sit a group of people in a room and say, "How do you think we should handle that?" He laid it out what he was going to do, and everyone backed it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, that's the control he had over
Right.
people.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Danny really had to scramble to make things happen for her.
Oh, poor
And
thing.
I don't want to talk any more about it because he might explain that in the next episode.
Spoiler.
But if they don't, then maybe we could do another podcast later and I'll talk more about it. But I think it's
You
all in
know
court
it.
documents.
Mm-hmm.
But um, but it's so strange because I knew her. I knew her before she started sleeping with
Mm.
Keith. I knew her while she was sleeping with Keith, but I didn't know she was sleeping with Keith. And then all of a sudden one day she just disappeared. And I
Yeah.
kept saying, "Where is she?"
Yeah.
Because she when I went back to New York, I hung out at the center a lot because there's people there and stuff.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden she was gone.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, and people would say, "Well, she's working on her breach," and I, well, like we're all working on it. We all had a
Mm-hmm.
breach.
And this is where, at moments in people's story like this, when I hear it and when I think of my own or others, you know what? There's no benign religion. There's no benign human improvement. Anything can turn at any moment. When you have this
Right.
level of coercive control through charisma and also leverage, saying collateral on each person, etc., everyone's going to cooperate because if they don't, they're going to get it. And the
Right.
whip can be turned towards you at any moment. That power, like you say, the power structure is great. And it's
And it's
designed like that.
and it's so insidious. It's like a soaker hose. I don't
What's a
know if
soaker
everybody knows.
hose?
A soaker hose is something you put in your garden bed and
With
you
the
hook it
hole?
up to a main. It's
Okay.
got the little hose in it,
Yeah.
and it slowly drips into your garden bed so
Yeah.
that you're not, and it uses
Mhm.
less water. And
Mhm.
that's what a cult does is it slowly
Yeah.
drips information into you instead, because if you walked into a cult and they just turned on a hose, you'd be like, the hell with this, I'm leaving,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Fire hose. Nope.
A hose, a regular
Ain't
hose
gonna
is
work.
what people like. They watch a documentary and they get the hose and they'd be like,
Right.
how could people ever sign up for anything like that?
That's
You
right.
know?
That's right.
And when people get indoctrinated into a cult, unless you're born into it or you're a young child like you that went into it, you
Right.
know, we get the soaker hose, and we're like a little drip here, a little drip there, a little
Right.
drip here, a little drip there, and you get slowly indoctrinated into
Yeah.
things. They put you into a beginning course,
That's right.
kind of thing, and they slowly drip stuff and
Hmm.
they slowly coerce you into things, and then before you know it, you got blinders on and you can't see things.
And we got three cults to discuss here, like the one I was in, the one you were in, and Jonestown. It's like,
Right.
okay, compare and contrast, like Dr. Lalish does in her book Bounded Choice. She
Hmm.
uses Heaven's Gate and Democratic Workers' Party. But see,
Right.
like, okay, so this one, mine was religious. His was fundamental religion, but also political because he considered himself
Hmm.
socialist communist.
Right.
And yours is self
It was an
improvement.
Yeah, it was a business success course when I
Yeah,
first started taking it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it was kind of like, people wore business clothes. That's what I put on
yeah.
Twitter today. It was like, you know, who
What
expected
happened?
it was a cult dressed up in business suits.
Yes.
It was
Yeah,
like,
and there's tons of those, like executive success
well, that's what it was
ones
called when I went. It was called
understood.
executive success programs.
Hmm. Right. Which is cleverly disguised like ESP, extrasensory perception.
Right.
Double entendre there. But yeah, no, there's tons of the self-help cults um that you could speak to because that structure is, you even said, I like how this is packaged.
Right.
I really like how this is presented. Okay, well, we liked, I was not an adult, like you say, but I spoke to Andrew Pledger. He was born in to Christian fundamentalism.
Hmm.
Another level, I was telling him, like, my gosh, they were breeding new members. They were breeding new members. They're not worried about recruiting. Literally, his mom and then his grandparents, same cult, IFB. Um, so but I mean, here similarly, there's a structure of control that's very important, who we
Hmm.
answer to. And you said, I remember when you were speaking to us in the other podcast, which is now a an official bonus episode on Frankie Files, FYI.
Hmm.
And I was so happy to cut out. Can you hear me, Frankie? I
Yeah.
felt really bad while that was
Oh,
happening. So those are all cut out. Girl,
that's
I'm
fine.
so sorry. I'm really, really sorry. But you were such a professional. Um, yeah, so like it's just that the charismatic leader has the structure in place. We bounce off the walls of that structure, and those who remain are going to go through the gauntlet, you know, and because you were thinking, well, I got this prize that I want to get at the end of the gauntlet. That's why
Hmm.
I'm staying. I want the enlightenment. I want the ascension. I want the initiation, blah, 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 blah. The higher
Well,
self connection, all the crap they feed us.
right.
Well, do you think Jim Jones said, we're going to go take Kool-Aid, Flavor Aid in Guyana the first day? Of course
No,
not. It
of
was
course.
incremental.
Well, another thing that's common in some of these cults is when the heat gets turned up on some of them,
Hmm.
they'll move the cult to a different location.
Uh-huh.
Like he moved out of California, moved to a different country. Um,
Hmm.
the OSHA group, he got kicked out of India.
That's right.
And then
That's
there's
right.
another one that
Tons of
Sarah,
problems.
yeah, yeah, the nitty guy. That Sarah Landry is involved in. Um,
Not
that
familiar.
he was, yeah, he was in India,
Hmm.
and then he got arrested for rape, and then they let him out for some reason, and he's on Discovery. Um,
Okay. I love
my
the
dot my
ID discovery
Yeah,
ones.
Discovery ID. It's a three-part series. My
Okay.
daughter joined a cult.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, I've
y-
seen the blurb for that. Okay.
yeah, watch it.
Okay.
Yeah. When it first came out, it was only um, it was only in Indian dialect, and then they had
Mm.
I think it still is, but now they have subtitles. Because I started watching it, I'm like, I don't understand anything, but I can watch the emotions on people's face, and then
Oh, okay.
they subtitled it right away.
Yeah.
But
American interest.
yeah, but
Okay.
they
He got
he got a
arrested.
yeah, he got arrested in India and they let him out, and then he has since moved to, they're not really sure what country, but
Mm.
he also has an arrest warrant, I think in LA,
Uh-uh.
because they have a temple in LA.
Hmm.
And so he's moved to a country that doesn't have extradition to the United States or India. So some of these cult leaders are very tricky. That's
Mm-hmm.
another commonality that some of them have, was they get in trouble in the country that they've started in,
Right.
and then they move, and then their loyalists will just follow them
You're
to
right.
that country. And that's one of the things we're really afraid of when Keith left the United States. Keith Raniere
Yeah.
left the United States. We were afraid he was going to run to a country that didn't have extradition, but he luckily just went to Mexico thinking he would have protection down there because Mexico had a large contingency.
Yeah. Yeah. And, with the location, I didn't know it was because of the extradition. Yeah. Okay. Got it. But having a backup second location like that, yes. Such a playbook, because Ciaran Warner's been reporting that the current one he is following, like a bloodhound, 7 years on the same story.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's dedicated. He is, there's been missing children revealed. A lot of good has happened from his reporting. So, amen, if to use the language. But they started in Alaska. And when the heat got hot, which was kids being taken from parents, marriages broken up, etc., judge decrees and stuff like that, they sold the property and moved to Tonasket, Washington. And they started preaching, and they're a severe, extreme Christian sect that wants no address. They meet only in people's homes and stuff. They don't want proof. And secret society of Christian, whatever, basically molestation with this washing thing that they do. And
Mm-hmm.
so the laws must have been accommodated the leader, who is now a criminal, and he can't put property in his name, so he's getting other people to put it in their name. This stuff, it's like, okay, we're talking religious criminals, and often in the self-help cults too, they're hiding in plain sight doing stuff,
Right.
because
Yeah.
this is such an arena of gray zone, I guess is the words.
Right. Yeah.
The trafficking still is where I'm really focused. Like, it really blows my mind how much trafficking, even in the NXIVM documentary, The Vow, has been exposed so far. There's
Right,
quite
yeah.
a bit of it.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute. Okay, because when you mentioned that the Mexico versus US locations, and of course Canada, right? So you
Right. Yeah.
had Canada.
Right. Well, just one area of Canada, but that's the only
Exactly.
area that opened up an actual center.
Because
There
of
were,
your credit, not theirs.
well, no, they built after I left. I mean,
Oh, okay.
Sarah Edmondson actually did a lot of work after I left. I mean, I don't want
Oh,
to, like,
I got you.
yeah, she
There's
did a
so
lot of work.
much, 20 years or so. There's just really a lot of the story I don't know.
Yeah.
So much.
Well, yeah, and then with child trafficking, there are religions that will do arranged marriages under
Yes.
the age of 18. And I know there's a lot of legislation going on right now trying to
Mm-hmm.
get rid of child marriages. That the person actually has to be 18.
Yes.
But even if that does get passed, there's still going to be arranged marriages. And then
Mm-hmm.
there are there's a fundamentalist Mormon group that broke off from the regular Mormon church, and they actually moved to Mexico because they did
Wow.
away, they wanted to be able to have multiple wives.
Mm-hmm.
And
More freedom.
they could do that in Mexico, but they couldn't do that in the United States. And
Well, another one that's surfing back and forth, and I want to comment on the arranged marriages in a minute, but another one that's surfing back and forth in contemporary is Luluz de Mundo, and they're about 100 years old. They're Restoration Christian church, and so there's 3 generations of men who've abused droves of little kids.
mm-hmm.
Droves. Their parents this is the part that's disturbing in NXIVM's story too. You know, the amount of women manipulated into becoming groomers and traffickers to appease the male leader, bring in them kids to molest. It's like, oh, okay. How did you get to this point in life? Oh, okay. I wanted to tell you, Tasneem. I'm going to put this. Yeah, this one's hard to say. This link, I'll put it in the chat here. Tasneem, her name is Sarah Tasneem, and she was a Sufi child bride. So the first time that she started being paraded around was age 12. Her dad would take her to these meetings where other members were there, and they were looking at her like a piece of meat to see if she was marriage material for them. He couldn't get it done at 12, but he got it done at 15. And the story is pretty mind-boggling. And she is now a child bride activist against it. I'm putting her link in the blog, Tasneem Advocacy Home.blog. This woman is so amazing. She so the father, in brief, marries her off at 15 to a man she had never spoken to in her life. And it's like at a hotel international conference, but it's a position that she, you know, she would have had to run out the hotel that day with nothing. And it just didn't occur to her to do that because she didn't know what was coming. And so it's like a spiritual ceremony. And here's the trafficking element that shocked me. She's then taken to another country where she is impregnated, but still they're not legally married, and she doesn't even know that. They come back to, then they come back to NorCal, where they're based, and decide she's pregnant already. The mother and the son, you know, colluded to make sure she didn't get out or get away. They get back to NorCal, and they go on a drive to Las Vegas, where she gets married to him in a drive-through. With, as she tells it in her story, the evidence of rape visible. And she's not 18. So her work, and that link is in the blog, is against, you know, changing the laws. She is advocating and educating people that 40 states in the United States allow child marriage. 40. It's pretty shocking. And that means, and even in her case, it was a parent permission slip. Her mother was not notified. She would never have approved. A parent's permission slip is all that they had to show. He was not present. It was in a drive-through. Okay, so stuff like that. When we talk about child trafficking, it's quite enabled. And I think, you know, why do cults get away with what they get away with? Religious laws, marriage laws are not what they should be. Freedom's one thing, you know. Oh, okay, you're putting that link in there? My daughter joined a cult. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's on Discovery Plus. Yeah.
Sweet. Yes, I have seen that advertised. I'm going to watch that. My goal is to help survivors be a louder voice than experts and psychologists. And I don't mean anything against them. I mean that the survivor has something to say. And It's time to, I just want to go, hey, I'll be here. If you guys want to get on my stage, find a way to get talking, you know?
Right.
And it's so painful.
I'm just starting a website for that.
No.
Yeah, we'll have to talk.
Let's figure out how to end this particular Cult Awareness Day broadcast. Thank you so much for joining me. It was very last minute, so thank you for that.
Oh yeah, you're so welcome. Yeah, thanks for letting me be part of the stage, and thanks everybody for joining us and being a part of our chat here about.
And check out Susan on Twitter. for commentary on the vow, and I believe we'll try to get a broadcast together where you can comment as a couple more episodes are coming out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to say there, right?
Oh yeah, and I've been tweeting a lot about mostly Nancy, but I've added some stuff in about Keith Raniere too.
Oh my goodness.
So,
the expose continues on Nancy. It's hair curling because it's like, honey, you're not innocent. Stop the act. I just didn't know.
well, the more she talks, the more she unravels her true self.
I know. It's bad. Well, I think the producers, one thing, I know that some criticize because the vow doesn't have an expert, but one thing they are good at doing is letting them hang themselves on camera. I'm enjoying seeing Nancy's extremely strange descriptions of what she thinks happened.
Well, and the more she talks, it's like she contradicts herself. Especially if you watch it and then you go and if you can remember what she said in episode 1 and then she talks about something in episode 4, it's kind of like, well, wait a minute.
It's like, wait, you said you didn't know your own daughter was having a relationship with Keith, but for 5 years.
How could you not know? I knew right away.
Kissing on him. You're kissing on him, going out the door, and then he's doing the same. It's like, wait, you're telling me you don't even catch a vibe? That's not believable. It's amazing. Yeah, so I'm liking how the producers, just put it up there in a documentary style. And it tells the story, what really happened. But it is truly upsetting, Susan, to watch.
Yeah. Well,
very disturbing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was more disturbed about season 1.
Okay.
And if he wasn't found guilty, we were all going to have to move to Guyana.
It was pretty, a lot of legal issues going there.
No, he was just going to come after us.
Understood. He would have been 300 more lawsuits. You're listening to The Frankie Files. FrankieFilesPodcast.com.